All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the lunch. So we are so excited to have Kurt Triplett here today to be our speaker. I'm excited to feature him today, so I'm just going to do a little introduction to him. So Kurt Triplett was hired in June of 2010 as Kirkland's 4th city manager. As city manager, Mr. Triplett administers and manages the city according to the mission, policies, and budget adopted by the city council. Mr. Triplett oversees the operation of 12 departments, over 600 employees, and a $751 million biannual budget. Mr. Triplett is committed to keeping Kirkland exceptional and maintaining the quality of life residents enjoy. His top priorities are outlined in the City Work Program, which is adopted by the City Council every 2 years. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Kurt Triplett.
Well, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, and thank you all for allowing me to be here. I love getting the opportunity to come and speak in front of the chamber. Pillars of the community, and I get to look at a pillar as I talk to you, so it's perfect, right? I do want to thank my council members and Mayor and Deputy Mayor for being here. They really set the vision for the community, and I just get the opportunity to implement. So thank you all for the leadership you provide in keeping our community great. We also have some Kirkland staff here, so if you work for the city of Kirkland, if you could just please stand very quickly. I'm not going to introduce you all, but I'm going to pass you on. Thank you. My deputy city manager always says it takes a village to run a village, and it's really, really true. And I am just so blessed to work with these talented and dedicated public servants who are just committed to making Kirkland the best place in the world to live, work, and play. So thank you all for what you do, and it's just my honor to work with all of you. All right, so my presentation tonight is always striving to be thriving. The reason I picked this topic is particular people at the chamber often ask, what is Kirkland's economic development strategy? So how do we grow and thrive as a city, especially since we don't have huge manufacturing centers like Renton, we don't have big distribution centers like Kent, we don't have giant Microsoft campuses like Bellevue and Redmond. So what do we do, right? And our strategy, which is even before my time, is really, it's us. Like, we create an exceptional city, and they come. They put businesses here, and we thrive. And so the city of Kirkland's job is to continue to make sure we have that thriving community. And one of the best ways that we do that, as you heard in the introduction, is through the City Work Program, which is where the council adopts the major initiatives that we use to move forward and keep Kirkland one of the best places in America to live, work, and play. And so I'm going to be talking about that because if you create a city that people love to be in, if they love to work here, if they love to live here, they love to play here, then success will follow. And it has. So I think all of you know, as last year, Kirkland was named Money Magazine's 3rd best place in America to live. And as the mayor keeps saying, that means we have to pass Tempe, Arizona, and Atlanta, Georgia to get to number 1. So we have our work cut out for us in the next year or so. But it was really nice to see this recognized on the national stage. And more locally, last year, we were also recognized by the Best of 425 as the best city on the east side. And this came from a poll of over 30,000 people who responded, a major tribute to the businesses and the quality of life here in the city. So it's very proud of that as well. And hopefully we can keep that streak going moving forward. So this thriving community strategy, probably the best, most transformative example of this is Google. And this happened before I got here, so I cannot claim credit for Google in Kirkland. I seem to be about the only person who doesn't claim credit for Google in Kirkland. But it did happen before my time. And really, it really is all of us that made Google possible. So the story of this, which I won't spend a lot of time on, but some of you may know, is Peter Wilson, who was asked by Google to expand in Washington, lived in Kirkland and loved it here, and said, if you want me to do this, I'm going to stay in Kirkland. And so they did, because they wanted it. And so he started a little small shop just a little bit north of downtown, a little east of downtown, and that has now turned 15 years later into these remarkable campuses at 6th Street and now Kirkland Urban, with thousands of employees and high-wage jobs who are making major investments like the Fairton Spur Park in Kirkland. All that came about because one person wanted to live in Kirkland, right? It's pretty amazing. And so Amazon decided they needed to copy Google. And so our next big facility, the mayor talked about this at her State of the City speech. Amazon is now going to make Kirkland the global headquarters of their satellite manufacturing center. This is up near Totem Lake. When I had a chance to meet with the Amazon folks who were siting this facility, I said, why did you pick Kirkland? And part of it was because it's close to their engineers in Redmond, and that was a big piece of it. But equally important, they said, is they learned how important it is to be close to something like the Cross Kirkland corridor, and to be close to Totem Lake Park, and to be close to the village at Totem Lake, so the people who work there have a place to go, right, to have experiences and buy food and so forth. So that's pretty telling, pretty powerful example again of sort of these national class companies coming because Kirkland is a great place to live. And when this facility is fully up and running, which will happen by the end of the year, there'll be over 250 employees there, and they'll actually be building 4 satellites a day, 365 days out of the year, thousands of satellites that they're going to be putting into low Earth orbit. We got this presentation, it was fascinating. And what it's going to provide is internet for the globe without wires. So, and their target is 2026, 2027 to make all that happen. So, pretty powerful stuff. So, a thriving community has Kirkland at the forefront of Amazon, who wants to cover the globe with satellites. But the thriving community also helped us cover Amazon. So, one of the most recent examples of this thriving community is Lily Yang, who is a world-renowned fashion designer who you may not know has actually designed the uniforms for Amazon drivers. So there's a photo there. If you Google Lily Yang and Amazon costumes, you can find all kinds of cool stuff on the internet. And she was gracious enough to let us use these photos. So Lily, Jim Lopez, our deputy city manager, talked to her about why Kirkland, and she gave us this amazing quote that she's allowed us to put on this PowerPoint. And I actually want to read it because I think it sort of encapsulates the thriving community better than I could, which is, I intentionally chose Kirkland for both my business and my home. For many years when I lived in Seattle, boo, when I lived in Seattle, Kirkland was my Sunday afternoon oasis. I love the beauty and calm here and the lakeside village vibe. I love that there are so many public parks and beaches. I can feel that the community cares for nature and recognizes how important it is for quality of life. So we're just so grateful that she has chosen to be here. She's going to be opening a business here soon downtown where the former birdcage is. I believe she's calling it the Monarch, with respect to the dresses that first made her famous, the butterflies. So, and really our obligation as a city is to try to continue to make sure we have a city that attracts these kinds of businesses and attracts folks like Lily Yang. So the City Work program is one of the ways to do this, and some of the results of previous City Work programs include the parks that we opened last year. We had David Brink Park, completely renovated. We opened Totem Lake Park by the village at Totem Lake, and of course, in our partnership with Google, the new Ferreton Spur Park, paid for by Google SRM, which is now a city park. It does have Chain Lane Brewery in it, for those of you who don't know, so you can stop by. Within the fences, you've got to stay in the fences, and you can have a beer there. And we're not stopping. We continue to strive to make it even better. So, again, a former City Work program item is to finish 132nd Square Park, and this is literally about 2 weeks from its grand opening. So we hope we'll see you all there. But this is the first ever public artificial turf field in Kirkland, where we're actually programming it for things like, thank you, former park board members, so thank you, Sue, for soccer, baseball, and other things. I won't tell you that I snuck over a fence to take that picture, but I was a little worried about the police chief getting a call. Some gentleman is lurking in the bushes here. But I want to say a little bit about these photos. I actually took all the photos that I'm going to mention in one day on June 1st, the first day of Pride Month. So all of these shots are actually from me running around with my camera and putting them up on there. So, well, one was at night. Again, I might have dumped a fence on that too. But we'll talk about that in a second. So as my deputy city manager likes to remind me, the best way to know you're successful is that you have traffic congestion and nowhere to park. Right? So the number one complaint we get, which we're treating as a sign of success, is there's always a lot of traffic. It's the number one complaint. And what can we do about it, right? And we try constantly to improve things. And we can't do everything alone as the city of Kirkland, but we can do a lot. And so the single biggest thing that we've done in partnership with the state of Washington led particularly by a former, now retired, council member Dave Asher, was to get new on-ramps and off-ramps to Interstate 405 near Totem Lake. If all continues to go well, we will have these ramps open by December of 2023, and you'll have a new ability to get on and off at 405 at the Village at Totem Lake and at our urban center. So remarkable sets of investments that came from direct advocacy by the City Council in a former city work program. And that was me standing in front of a big tractor, and again, probably not supposed to be there. We're continuing to try to make very focused investments that improve things. This is actually a right turn lane, which is right by Arco and the Starbucks, depending on your point of view, or as my kids like to say, it's next to Wendy's across the street. This has been a long time coming, but we're about to wrap it up. It's actually going to open also in the next 2 weeks. And not only is this going to help with the traffic congestion, but it's actually something that helps us with the speed and reliability for transit. One of the reasons this project is really useful is the Route 255 comes up here and turns to go downtown. And this will actually save them minutes on their route and make it a much more reliable and predictable route. We're also focused on traffic congestion and safety in and around schools. So this is another project that is just months from opening from a former city work program. This is the Northeast 136th right turn lane along with new signals into Juanita High School. And this is going to be completed this August. So it'll be open in time for the school year in September. This one has been a long time coming. It's been a partnership with the Lake Washington School District, who paid for half of this project. And finally, downtown parking. Anyone here ever have a problem finding parking downtown? Well, I just heard from someone that they didn't just this very day. And actually, that's the whole point. We have the battle of anecdotes about parking downtown. Some people say you can't find any. Some say it's not a problem. We're going to find out the truth. So the City Council gave us money in this budget to do a waterfront and downtown parking assessment. And so this is actually getting installed literally as we speak around downtown. Most of it's already done. But we're putting these little sensors in the ground, and we're going to be able to see when there's somebody parking above that sensor. And this is a little map that shows you all of the nearly 500 sensors that are being put in. They're in all the streets downtown. They're in the municipal parking lots, and they're going to be in the waterfront parks where there's parking. And what you can see is they start immediately. They send wireless signals to the software system. And we can actually pull up and find which spaces are vacant, which spaces have parking in them. And we'll have data for a full year. We're starting July 1st. We're going to take it through the end of the year, but these things stay in the ground, and we're going to take it through the winter and the summer as well. But we'll finally have seasonal data on what actually happens with parking downtown. And so this is already live in the Lake and Central parking lot, and it's going to be live for everything on July 1st. There is also a way, and I could talk about this in the Q&A section, to then make this available to the public so that the public would be able to say, hey, I want to know where parking is. Can I find a parking space? But that's a little bit more involved and a little bit way down the line. And then from all this, the point of all this would then be to say, what can the city do to try to encourage more effective, efficient parking and turnover, particularly so that if someone is coming into Kirkland, they know they can find a place to park, and so that businesses know they're going to get turnover and they're going to get more customers. And then finally, from the old City Work program, before I get to the new one, this is the Totem Lake Connector Bridge, which is going to be finished very, very soon, and there's going to be a huge grand opening on July 8th, I believe. This is another one where I saw someone hop the fence, so I asked them to take a picture for me. But what I'm really excited about this picture is we did know we were going to have LED lights that we could do seasonal things with. And the LED lights actually got in and up and running the last week of May. And so we said, we're going to use those now, even though the bridge is not open, in rainbow colors for Pride Month. So this photo I took at night on June 1st for Pride Month, and that was pretty cool. And then if you look at the picture of the little hotel, there we have a little outlook. Some people say walking the plank, but we created a little view corridor on the edge of the bridge, and I actually went to the edge of that and took that photo at night. I have to say, the iPhone camera is pretty good at night. I was surprised that even came out. So that's just a quick overview of sort of like what the past city work programs have brought to us in terms of success and investment to keep us a thriving community. And what I'm going to do now is cover the 12 elements of the current 2023-2024 city work program. And at your tables, you also have an example, a written example, old school example that has all of these in there, and they have much more details. And all of these things, of course, can be found on our website. So there's about 15 minutes of this part of the presentation. I will tell you that every one of these elements could be its own half-hour to hour-long presentation. So I'm going to give a high-level overview, and then we'll have some chance to talk about any of these things in the question and answer session at the end. So first, you cannot have a thriving community if everyone can't thrive in it, right? And so the City Council has always put a priority on serving everyone and creating a community where truly everybody feels welcome and everybody belongs. And so last year, we adopted our first ever DEIB roadmap. Actually, might have been a year and a half ago, a little 2 years ago. And we hired our first ever DEIB manager, Erica Moscaro. And if you were at the, thank you, Lisa. If you were at the Pride crosswalk opening, you got a chance this year in action, but she's already made a huge impact on us, and we're just really grateful to have her. But the roadmap itself has several dozen actions that improve the city being a welcoming and belonging community. And Erica's primary charge is making sure that we accomplish every one of those. And she'll be coming back to the City Council to talk about some of our successes in August. And then one of the tasks in the roadmap is actually, and then add a whole bunch more tasks. So we will constantly do better and better to advance and thrive. The council also wanted to make sure that we help those who are in the most need. And so they have allowed us to invest in a partnership with the cities of Kenmore and Bothell and Lake Forest Park and Shoreline, and implementing what we're now calling affectionately RACER, the Regional Crisis Response Agency. And this is a new third set of first responders. These are mental health professionals who will respond to people in crisis, people who are having suicidal issues, mental behavioral health crises, or even drug addiction challenges. And they'll be partners with police and fire, or even sometimes on their own, to go out and make sure that people, when they're at their worst, have someone there who can help them. And the photo you see here are actual current mental health professionals who work for RACER. They're actually out every day along with 2 others, and they're already providing these services. And when this is fully up and running, we'll have 10 community responders who will provide nearly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, somebody to respond if someone's in crisis. And for that, RACER actually earned an award from the North End Human Services Agencies, the Building Bridges Award, their first annual one. So this is all the folks associated with it. But we also partner not just on that, but on a new crisis clinic, a mental health crisis clinic in Kirkland. We wanted anywhere in the 5 cities, and we partnered with a group called Connections Health. Whoops, did I get that name right? Connections is the main name. I always forget the next one. And they have picked a building in the 405 office complex right next to the Kirkland Justice Center. And that crisis clinic will actually be opening in 2024. And it's going to be a no wrong door crisis clinic, which means anyone can go. You can take yourself, you can take a family member or friend, and it will also be a place that police and fire can take someone who's having a challenge. So we're pretty excited about both of those aspects. Our next item, item 3 on the public safety theme, is to complete the promises we made to the community when they passed Proposition 1, Fire Proposition 1. And it was to build new and renovate new fire stations, Fire Station 27, 22, 26, and 21. And on my June 1st journey, these are the photos I was able to take. Public Works CIP team has been an extraordinary job. Almost everything you see on here is actually coming out of that group. But that fire station, believe it or not, will be finished in December of this year. So now that the framing's up, it's going to go really, really fast after that. It's going to provide public safety services on the east side of 405. It'll be the second fire station, something that Councilmember Toby Nixon has long advocated for, and we made it happen. Thank you, Toby. And then you can see on the right, my right, is it your left? Fire Station 22, which is in Central Houghton. And this is a renovated station, which will also be open. This actually is going to open in August of this year. And it will actually have in it a new dedicated aid car that wasn't there before that came out of the proposition. So there'll be enhanced services when all this is finished for both fire and medical services. And it's all going to start with our new renovated Station 22. The other piece of this proposition was to hire new firefighters to provide this enhanced service. And I'm very proud of all the efforts of our Fire Chief, Joe Sanford, and our HR Director, Chuck Deaver. They have, with this last class that just graduated and is now on the line, we have filled every one of the positions that was authorized in the ballot measure. So, just round of applause. Our next problem is we have to keep firefighters from retiring because now we have to start all over again. But we have, I think, now 120 firefighters that we have on the line to provide the services promised in Proposition 1. So the best way you can all help us define what a thriving community is our Kirkland Comprehensive Plan process. This is initiative number 4. And we chose the tagline of "You belong here," and how do we create a sustainable, connected, and welcoming community. And so we'll be going through the community all of this year, and then in front of the City Council all of next year, working on how to continue to make this a great place to live, work, and play. Some examples of what you'll see throughout this process. As you might know, we did a huge upgrade to the station area in anticipation of the bus rapid transit services is coming. This is a rendering of if the zoning was actualized the way we hope it will be, what it's going to look like, which is a really sustainable, thriving new community in Kirkland that has lots of access to transit and plentiful, affordable housing, all done at the highest levels of environmental standards. And here's a sample of what 85th Street will look like should the zoning be actualized, very similar look and feel to downtown Redmond. Hopefully we can get Hoffman's Bakery to come back once this happens. And then finally, on the station area, one of the things we also care greatly about is making sure that there's places for people to experience open space and recreate. And so this is a shot of investment we'll be making in Forbes Lake. Many people don't know there's an actual lake there. But we'll be creating a park similar to the Totem Lake Park where we'll have the opportunity to have boardwalks around it and a play area and just really give people in the city access to even more open space to enjoy the wild. Anyone besides us having problems getting employees and keeping them? Is it just us? So I think everybody everywhere, whether they're public sector or the private sector, is really struggling with attracting and retaining employees. We just had Dr. Jeff Tomlin come and speak to the City Council a couple days ago, and he mentioned how challenging it is to get nurses and doctors and technical staff. It's just, right now they all have choices, and so you have to try to find a way to still be a preferred employer, to be attractive to them, to provide amenities and competitive wages and benefits. And so we put this as a very specific initiative. We've never done this before because the council wants us to stay at the forefront of making sure we have great employees. So we're looking at a lot of things. We're looking at how can we maybe start to provide childcare, which is something we haven't talked about before. But one example of how we've done this is very recently announced a partnership with our guild. So when we negotiate labor contracts, we have to compete with our surrounding neighbors. And one of the trends over the last 2 years, while our current contract was still in place, is that jurisdictions are now giving take-home patrol vehicles to their officers. So, and part of this is to deal with the fact that officers have to commute. They usually come from far away. And so they're actually providing patrol vehicles for them to go back and forth. And so this came up in our discussions. We concluded together as a council, city manager, and the guild that this is probably the most expensive way that you could do it and the least beneficial environmental, right, to provide a fully loaded patrol car just so people can drive back and forth. And so with the leadership of our council, we actually negotiated a deal where we're providing leased electric vehicles to all our officers instead of patrol cars. And this is actually a photo of the Hyundai Konas that we are getting for each officer who chooses the lease. We're also providing the equivalent amount of money to an officer if they choose to go out and buy their own electric vehicle. So they're all treated the same, but if they choose to make their own investment in down payments and additional money, they can do that. We didn't expect anyone to do that, but we have 34 officers who went out and bought electric cars because we did this just in the last month alone. So the cool thing about this is not only does it help us attract and retain our employees, but it's actually much better for the environment than what other folks have done. So we're very proud of that one. Item 6, kind of going on this theme again of how do you reduce congestion and increase safety, is you have to provide alternatives, right? Safe alternatives to just driving in your car. And so 2 of our major arterials in and out of Kirkland are Winnetka Drive and 100th Northeast going up into Bothell. And we will be going out to bid and starting construction on these 2 projects this year, hopefully completing them to the end of next year, or might go a little bit into 2025. But this is to put bike lanes and sidewalks and make these much better for pedestrians and cyclists and provide a true alternative for ways to get in and out of the city of Kirkland. And an even more localized level of safety, of course, is our schools. And so a couple years ago, one of our work program items was to complete a school safety plan, a school walk route plan for every elementary school, middle school, and high school in the city of Kirkland. And when we got done with that, we had $40 million worth of projects. We're like, okay, now what do we do? So in this budget cycle and in this work program, the council's given us permission to bond for $26 million using the $20 car tab, which I'm happy to talk about at the end of the meeting. But we'll be, over the next 3 years, putting $26 million worth of crosswalks and sidewalks and flashing beacons and other safety measures in and around the city to encourage kids to be able to walk and bike to school safely. Going back to my theme of, it's not a thriving community if everyone can't thrive here, the huge issue we all know about is the affordability of the east side and Kirkland. Right? It's just really, really difficult for anyone to afford to live here. So City Council has made a huge priority of attainable and diverse housing throughout the city. And we are supporting projects that are going to bring hundreds of units of affordable housing to the city over the next couple of years. And I'm just going to go over a couple of these projects real fast. So this first one is called Polaris in Totem Lake. The council just passed an ordinance adopting the final funding for this. It's actually going to go into construction this year. Over 400 units total, but 344 units available to the folks who need it most. So these are also the people who work in our shops and retail. You can't have a complete community if people can't work here and live here, right? So this is the best way that we can all make a difference. So this project is going to be underway soon and hopefully complete in about the next 2 years. A similar project is the Kirkland Heights project. This is actually owned by the King County Housing Authority. And it's actually townhomes for families, which is a very scarce resource in the inventory of affordable housing. So the Housing Authority is doing something pretty unique here in Kirkland. So instead of tearing this down and putting up big multifamily units, they're actually putting a third story on each of their buildings so that there's actually more townhomes for families. So we're pretty excited to help them achieve that. And when they're done, we'll have 276 units with some space, some playgrounds. It'll be right next to that 132nd Square Park that we saw. So it's an awesome location for housing like this. This next one, Ardea, I actually didn't think could be built, but my planning director was like, yes, you can do that, right by a wetland. so this, again, my kids' frame of reference, is just north of McDonald's in Totem Lake, right? Or left of the hospital, however you want to look at it, west of the hospital. So this project is going to be just in a allowed use spot where there's some dry land right at the corner next to the 405 on-ramps and off-ramps. But this is a focused units for seniors and veterans, so really crucial to bring that kind of capacity to the city. Super excited. And the last two slides on the housing are really focused on those, as I said, who need it most, which is those experiencing homelessness. And so our first one is partnering with Friends of Youth on a shelter. This is they are converting a vacant office building to 26 beds for adults and also to have services in it. So pretty happy about that. And then we hope to help move those folks and others who are experiencing homelessness into the former La Quinta Inn, which is a partnership with King County. We'll be converting that hotel into 121 units of permanent supportive housing with wraparound services to help people stabilize their lives and make their life better. What's really cool about what our city council did, which other cities did not do, is when we sat down with King County about this happening, we actually negotiated that 2/3 of these spaces have to be available to those who are either in Kirkland or on the east side. So we want to really use this to partner with King County to help solve homelessness on the east side, which we do have, even though a lot of folks down south and in Seattle don't think we do. So we're pretty excited about that, and we're going to be working hard to make sure that when this opens, we'll actually help people get there and get them out of the rain and off the streets and into a place where they can really get help and stabilize their lives. So a lot of that is sort of current thinking. We're also always looking forward in the city work program. And so the next thing the council's asked us to do, number 9, is look at a potential parks ballot measure. And we created a group of 42 people, the Parks Funding Exploratory Committee, ably chaired by our council member Kelly Curtis. They have been working since October. These are a relentless, dedicated, passionate group of folks who've been through almost 40 meetings. They have just been enormously dedicated, and they worked from October all the way up to May to make recommendations to us on what should be included in a ballot measure. And those conversations continue. The city council has to make this decision by the end of July. But they are recommending that the city of Kirkland do put on the ballot a new aquatic and recreation center, in part to address the tens of thousands of families that are on wait lists for swim lessons and the ability to play in gymnasiums and things. We just have not enough indoor capacity to meet the needs of our community. The centerpieces of this would be two big pools. One is a warm water pool and also sort of a spray and play pool. This would be great for families and kids and birthday parties, but it's also a place where you can have therapeutic things like exercise for seniors and so forth in this pool. So it has a lot of uses beyond just fun, and we're excited about that. But also, there'll be next to it is an 8-lane lap pool. And this pool can be used for swim lessons, it can be used for master swimming, it can be used for high school training and even high school competitions. So really meeting a need that we can't currently meet in the city of Kirkland. The other spaces will be used things like music and sports and dances and events, and just adding a new asset that's really necessary for the city. But beyond the facilities itself, there's also a whole other series of investments. And again, this could be its own 20-minute presentation. But I think I just wanted to highlight one of the big focuses is programs for teens. I think kids have been the hardest hit since COVID. Over the last couple of years, we're seeing this in schools, we're seeing this everywhere. To create actionable places where kids can go and programs that they can do to get outdoors and experience things and put down their phones is a key component that PFEC has recommended us to include in the ballot measure. All right, we have three left. Item 10. How do we keep adjusting this issue of traffic congestion? Well, providing transit alternatives is one of the best ways. And so we have been relentlessly partnering with Sound Transit and King County Metro and WSDOT to make things happen. We've talked a lot about the bus rapid transit intersection at 405, but probably the second biggest thing is a potential future rapid ride line, which is coming, which is the K line. And Councilmember John Pascal, who wasn't able to be here, is on our regional transit committee and was a huge advocate for this with King County. So this would be a line that would start in Totem Lake. It would go down. There's two different potential routes through the city. It would connect to the bus rapid transit station at 405. It would then go down further, and you can see it connects to the east side light rail line, and then it goes all the way to the Eastgate Park and Ride. So this one line will actually connect Kirkland to all the regional transit in King County and really give people a true choice as to using transit instead of having to drive everywhere. Which is good because that's one of the requirements of our sustainability master plan, is we need to reduce driving and emissions. And so the council adopted a couple years ago the sustainability master plan, which, similar to the DEIB plan, has dozens and dozens of actions. And the council wants to make sure we keep this at the forefront of our thinking and that we implement key steps in a sustainability master plan. These include things like the electric vehicles, electrifying the city fleet, things like building code upgrades, and providing heat pumps to low-income households. So lots of stuff that we're doing on that front. And then the final work program item, and I'm close to wrapping up here, is then we get to do it all over again. So we have a cycle of adopting budgets. What you can see on the left is actually the cover of our budget that we just adopted. This is the sustaining services and building a community where everyone belongs. That was the theme of our budget, which is actually now $1 billion. For this last one, I need to update my bio. This is the first time we ever hit $1 billion budget. And some of that is just these giant capital projects that you're seeing in here. But we want to make sure that we carry those themes forward, that we're really truly building a thriving community for everyone, that it's equitable, that it's diverse, that everyone belongs, and that we can sustain it, right? Nobody wants to add projects and programs and then have to cut them. So that's going to be our focus next year. So I have 2 slides left to bring it home, and then I'll open it for questions. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how all this comes together in one place. So how does the community and the council and the staff help create a welcoming community? And it's really the story of the Pride crosswalk. And my staff tried to teach me how to animate everything, but I was not able to do it. Operator error. So I have this just all on one slide. So in about March of this year, Councilmember Curtis suggested we try to find a way to put a rainbow crosswalk somewhere in Kirkland. It was a legislative request memo, as we call it. It was supported by the council. We actually used this as a case study for our new Kirkland initiative, where we're teaching a group of folks basically how to do government. And that sounds really simple, right? Just let's put a Pride crosswalk somewhere. Turned out to be anything but. It turned out to be an intense partnership between the city attorney's office and Public Works and the city manager's office and our CIP team as we tried to figure out, can one even do this legally, right? Can one do it in a way that is safe so that people don't get into wrecks or people don't get hurt? What kind of materials do you use? Because this is not out there. There's not these sort of things. We even had debates like, which flag? right? There are several different pride flags out there. And who decides, right? Is it you? Is it me? Is it, all these things came up. And if you do a flag like this, you have to do some other flag. So all of these are the things that we had to talk through. And we had a deadline. We had to get this all done by June 1st, right? So it was a little frantic. Once again, Public Works, the star of the show, came through. And on that same day, when I was out taking photos, I was able to come back at the end and spend the last half hour of the evening watching this flag be put in the ground with thermoplast, which is basically, I call it the fondant of the Public Works system. You roll it out, then you heat it in, and it starts up. I'm a huge Food Network person, right? And it looked spectacular. And that was Thursday evening, June 1st. 6 o'clock in the morning, I get a text from my police chief. That's why she left. Saying there's a problem with the crosswalk. Right. So 6 a.m. got a photo from one of our Public Works crews had been down there and saw this. Police officer was right on the spot too. We actually were worried something like this might happen, so we actually regularly patrolled this just to see. So this was within a few hours the last time we looked at it, so we knew it was recent. Someone dumped white paint on the crosswalk early in the morning on Friday. We suspect that the reason they did that is they wanted cars to drive across it and smear the paint and crush the paint into the fondant, into the thermoplast. So I had the unhappy news of telling all the council, hey, this happened, but we're on it. But in a remarkably heroic effort, you can see on the left, this is another photo we took. Almost a dozen folks from the Public Works crew went down there, and they spent hours, literally, on their hands and knees, scrubbing with the bristle brush. So I actually get choked up at this. And spraying to clear this thing off, right? And to say that we're not going to let this stop us. What was really cool about this, Julie and I talked about this, is not only were they doing that, they actually did it and complied with all our environmental codes. So they went down, they put up the buffers, they caught the paint, they did everything right, and they had literally on their hands and knees scrubbing this. And you can see those of you, how many people had a chance to be at the grand opening? I've seen the crosswalk. Okay, so yeah, quite a few of you. So that night, we had a spectacular event that went off without a hitch because these folks were willing to make that commitment. And those are the kinds of people, thank you. And they were so proud of themselves, and we were so proud of them. But that's really, when I talk about creating a community where people love to live, they love to work, and they love to play. And these folks clearly love to work with us. And we want to continue to be an employer that deserves that kind of energy and dedication. And so my last photo, also taken on the 1st, is when you do all that, when you create a thriving community where people love to be here, love wins. The people who pour the paint don't. This photo was actually, I went up to take the shot of the Station 27. And I drove up there and I parked, and this gentleman, I should have got his name, but I was not thinking at the time, had just put this out for Pride Day, because it was for Pride Month, because it was the 1st of June. And so he put that up, and I said, hey, can I take a picture of that? This was before, unfortunately, the Pride flag had been vandalized, so it was just, I thought it was cool, right? But I really felt like this was a great way to wrap up because, the way our community wins is when we all come together and we make this complete community. So that is the end of my presentation. Just want to let you know we are always striving to have a thriving community that's a place people want to be. And the work plan is really the foundation of that. And I am very happy to answer questions about any of these elements or anything else that's going on in the city of Kirkland. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Hi, Samantha St. John.
Port of Seattle.
So you talked about housing and the connection to workforce development. But one thing I was sad to not see in there is, I know you know what I'm going to say, accessory dwelling unit. We worked so hard to make that happen with City of Kirkland, and City of Kirkland is really leading the way on that. And so I'm curious, now that we have these pre-approved accessory dwelling units as a housing potential in Kirkland, how is that being promoted, and how's the word being spread by that? Because it really does open up a lot of housing supply if we do it well.
Thank you. So the question was about, we've done a lot on accessory dwelling units, and we now have pre-approved plans that people can use, and have staff here to help me answer questions if I can't quite get to it. We need to do a better job of promoting and marketing. So we currently do have it on our website. We do have some handouts and things, but we are relatively recently that we finally got the plans adopted and approved. We also have the ability for architects to submit their own plans if they want, and we can add additional ADUs to that pre-approved plan list. But so it is getting out there. We have a housing dashboard that you can see, and we are seeing an uptick in these ADUs and so forth, but we know we need to do a better job. Council's raised similar issues to that, so I'll make sure to talk to Adam and our communications team about making sure we get that out. But yes, it's an extraordinary strategy for allowing seniors to stay in place, for allowing people to keep their kids next to them. It's a key element of affordable housing in Kirkland, so thank you for raising that. Sharice, you want me to? You got it.
Sue Contreras, what's happening with the cannery?
What is happening with the cannery? How many people know what the cannery is? Oh, wow, okay, I'm impressed. Well, that's going to change my answer. No. So the cannery, so you may know, a gentleman named Carl Bradley bought the cannery quite a while ago. He has said that he feels like his time to own the cannery is coming to an end. So he's given the city the opportunity to see if we can purchase the cannery from him. So we actually just had a discussion about this at the council a couple days ago. We are going to be actively engaging Carl to see if we can reach an agreement on the city purchasing the cannery. There are some issues that we're working through. There are some challenges to it, and hopefully we'll have a productive partnership and we'll reach an agreement and we'll find a way to make that something that we own. But the cannery itself, so that those of you who don't know, we actually have some of this on our website as well, or you can Google it, is one of the oldest buildings in Kirkland, and it was built during the 1930s as a WPA project. So it's one of our few historic buildings. And there really currently isn't any environmental protection to it. So if someone bought it, they could take it down. And so part of the issue is could we save it? The big challenge to the cannery is if you do anything other than let it be cool and old, you have to put another $6 to $8 million of investments in it. And so that's the challenge that we need to work through with Carl, that it's an expensive thing to take on, and what we've all wanted to do is, could you make it a museum, an event center, could you have parks classes and things? I mean, these are the ways we want to bring it to life, but those do need to come up to current codes and be safe. So there's just a lot of nuance to that. But I think our goal is to find a way to make sure that we always have the cannery one way or the other. Thank you.
Hi, Kurt. So you had mentioned Connections, the crisis center that will be built in 2024. And so this is going to be the first of its kind in this area, really in the state of Washington, and understanding all of the benefits of it, but it will bring a lot of those seeking help to the city of Kirkland. The location that was selected happens to be near preschool, senior living, and other local businesses. And so I'm wondering what the city is doing to address the concerns of those local businesses.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great point. And so a lot, and Connections is doing a lot. So Connections has done similar clinics in Arizona, and this was an issue down there that they wanted to make sure we address. So they actually brought folks from Arizona who are in police and fire up here to talk to our police and fire folks about what people really experience, and they're developing a safety and security plan, which the city is reviewing and working with them on. The goal is not everyone in King County comes to Kirkland. Right. There is one other, and very few people know about, there is one downtown crisis clinic. And what we've experienced is no one goes to it because it takes 2.5 hours to get there if you encounter somebody and you want to help them, right? So we think that's probably going to happen here as well. And King County, just the voters of King County recently passed a levy that are supposed to create 5 clinics throughout the county. This will be one. And what we think will likely happen is it will be people who need help from the communities they're in, right? Now, having said that, it's scary to folks when people think about somebody with a mental health crisis coming to a clinic and being next to them. The data doesn't bear out that it's an actual safety issue, but it's definitely a perception issue. So one of the things we're doing with the city manager's office and Connections is we're really going to be going door to door as we get closer to say, this is what it's like, here are the numbers, here's who to call, here's your liaison. It happens to be right by the Kirkland Justice Center, so police are very, very close. But we're confident that's actually going to solve a problem, not create a problem, because the crises are happening now. Our police and fire are happening now. And what happens today is you take them to Evergreen Health. Evergreen Health holds them, and then they literally just let them go. And they just wander out of the hospital, right? So that's also not a situation that we want. It doesn't provide any help to the person in crisis either. So we just want to have constant communication. We want to hear concerns, we want to address them when they come up. We have a little bit of lead time. We have about a year to figure this out, but it's definitely a top priority for us. It's a top priority for Connections, and it's definitely a top priority for police and fire to make sure that this goes really, really well. So thank you for the question, but keep letting us know if you're hearing, because this will be an ongoing conversation. Thank you. So Bonnie, and then.
My question is, you mentioned transit, you mentioned the new rapid ride, the 85th Street. That all sounds great, but my neighborhood, you didn't put transit, it's taken away the bus service.
Yeah.
The Metroflex doesn't serve my neighborhood. The park and rides have been closed. And where I used to be able to ride buses and go to the Husky Gate, go to the Mariner game, I can't anymore. I drove to Des Moines and rode the light rail. Now, that's not exactly what you have in mind, but who's going to start serving our community with transit? We keep being told that annexation was going to give us a bigger voice in regional issues. We've got less transit today than we had then.
Yeah, I think that's actually a fair assessment.
I live off of 116th and Bonita.
So that is a fair assessment that transit has been challenging to get on the east side for a whole host of reasons. We have been advocating strongly in every forum, and as I said, John Pascal's on the Regional Transit Committee. He's been working really hard on this. It's a combination of a lot of things. It's a combination of COVID. It's the fact that transit, unfortunately, in King County is funded primarily through sales tax, so it sees huge shocks going up and down. It's a combination of us trying to put transit where people need it, people who can only use transit. So the east side tends to suffer in a lot of the regional grading, and we're trying to work hard to overcome that in a way that says you need to do both. You need to provide transit to people who can, who want to use transit because you want to get them off the road, and you also need to provide transit to people who can only use transit, right? So it's a delicate balance. We don't think King County has got it right. We continue to advocate for resources in King County, and especially East King County. But you're right, at the moment, the way things are shaping up, we're getting less investment than other areas. We understand the reasoning behind that, but we're going to keep working to try to bring more transit back. It's going to be a constant regional conversation, and I know our city council's all committed to try to make that happen.
I don't understand why I keep paying more and getting less. That's a hard issue for me to get over.
Uh-oh, I'm getting the hook. I think I'm getting the hook. Thank you so much for all your questions and for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm super, super grateful.
Thank you, Kurt. We always appreciate this annual mid-year update.